Hi, my name is Riley Allen. This is my review of Chapter 6 of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone titled The Journey from Platform 9 3/4. We start off the chapter by Harry telling us that being at the Dursleys for this month sucked because they kept ignoring him. They ignore him, which apparently just made him feel alone, I guess. He officially named Hedwig the Owl. Then he asked Uncle Vernon. He was smart enough to wait to ask Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia to take him to platform 9 3/4 to the train station until the day before, so they couldn't change their mind. Uncle Vernon only agreed because they had to go take Dudley to the doctor to get the pig's tail removed, and Dudley probably definitely had to go through some type of surgery to get that removed. Man. That wasn't... And Hagrid, didn't even tell anybody that he did that so someone could go fix it. It was done to Dudley in a snap, basically the snap of a finger. It could have been healed in a snap of the finger, I guess, as well. But Hagrid wasn't thinking about that. Honestly, this makes me feel bad for Dudley. Vernon eventually takes him to the train station and basically has a good old jolly laugh at Harry's expense because there is no platform 9 3/4. Never mind the fact that Petunia at least has been there before, or at least knows how to get there. Well, Harry has kind of like a mini freak out because, as he should, he doesn't know what to do. He's an 11-year-old kid, scared and alone, doesn't know what to do. And then he meets Molly Weasley. We actually had kind of a reference to her family in the previous chapters. Hagrid mentioning that the good people were killed in the war, the Pruitts. Those were Molly's brothers. We find that later, many books down the line, I believe, in the 5th one. We also meet for the first time 4 of her children. Percy, the oldest one that we meet, then Fred and George, the twins, Ron, who's going to be in Harry's year, or we meet 5 of them, my bad, and then Ginny, the only girl and the youngest. Harry eventually works up the courage after seeing Percy basically disappear into nothingness to ask Miss Weasley how to get to the platform, and she tells him. And again, we get Harry's pessimistic thoughts, because the whole time he's running at this wall, he's thinking, I'm going to crash. He was so sure that he was going to crash because he was so sure this was a solid wall, and again, was this just something that she wrote in the moment? Because, I guess that would be something normal people would think about as they're running full speed at a wall. I'm going to crash. Or is this... And did she take inspiration in the next book from this scene to actually have him crash into the wall? Or was that something... Because it's so small and minuscule, I doubt that was actually planned in advance. But, people write differently. People have different ideas. I just doubt it. But I just thought it was something cool that I noticed in this reread. Well, he gets to the platform, and we kind of have a mini introduction to Neville and his grandmother. We get a mini introduction to Lee Jordan. And then Harry gets helped on the train by the Weasley twins, Fred and George, who help him get his baggage up. Then he basically spies on the Weasley family, I guess, trying to figure out what a normal family's like. And then Percy's kind of, acting pompous, I guess you could call it, about being a prefect, which is, and when you read the first book, you're not really supposed to like Percy. You think he's supposed to be arrogant, But I'm going to be honest. If I was Percy and I was named prefect, I'd probably brag about it as well because, depending on how big the year, there's only going to be one prefect out of the boys. And we're not really told how big his year is, but still, one prefect out of all the boys in his house, we don't know how big his class is or how many Gryffindor boys there is, but, still something to brag about. We also, then we meet Ron, who comes in and basically hits it off with Harry. They basically bond over being poor, or only difference is Harry was poor because he was abused, and Ron was poor because their family was poor. They'd probably be a bit better off if they didn't have so many kids, but, considering that, although maybe who knows? Anyway, Ron's just as pessimistic, and gloomy because he's got Percy's old robes, or Bill's old robes, which don't really fit that well. Charlie's old wand, which is broken, and I don't think that's safe. And Percy's old rat. We hate that rat. We don't like that rat. And then he's basically gloomy because, all his older brothers are so great. Bill was head boy. Charlie was captain of the Quidditch team. Fred and George were fun, Percy's a prefect, and Fred and George are funny. And Ginny's the only girl, so she's got that. And Ron's the youngest boy, so anything he in his mind he does is gonna be, worthless. It basically sets up his goals, I guess, to separate him from his family. Then they basically bond over candy. We get introduced to the Wizarding World's version of the Bean Boozled Challenge. Bertie Bott's every flavored bean. Then we're introduced to the Wizarding equivalent of Pokemon cards, Wizarding Chocolate Frogs. Then we meet Neville, again, who's lost his toad. He's going to be a somewhat of an important character later on. He doesn't have much showing. This chapter is basically introducing us all to the main characters that are children in quick succession, because then Hermione Granger comes in, and, ooh, God, does this girl need to take a break in between talking, or at least take a breather. I kind of understand Ron and Harry's, or at least Ron's point of view on her. She did come off kind of strong in their first conversation, a bit, not so much arrogant, but more of snooty, I guess it could be called. Then we meet Draco Malfoy. And right off the bat, we are told that the Malfoys and the Weasleys don't really like each other. When Draco introduced himself, Ron sniggered and tried to hide it in a cough. I'm going to be honest, good for Ron. At least he tried to hide it. He tried to be somewhat civil. Somewhat civil and hide it in a cough. But, Draco didn't like that, so he immediately started insulting the Weasleys. And, Harry, who's just had his first friend ever, isn't going to take that lying down. So, he starts saying he's not going to be friends with Draco. And the Draco doesn't like that and insults Harry, saying if he doesn't be smarter, he's going to end up like his parents. And right off the bat, Ron is like a ride or die, because when Harry stands up, Harry and Ron stand up ready to fight the Draco and his two goons, Crabbe and Goyle, at the same time. Although before a fight could break out, Scabbers, again, we don't like him, bites Crabber Goyle's fingers, which makes him run off. Only for the Hermione to come in and say, you shouldn't be fighting. You'd get us in trouble. Something like that. Then the train leaves, eventually arrives at Hogwarts. We get our first look. They get their first look of Hogwarts. We don't. And Hagrid takes them to the boats because they're going to be riding boats across the lake to Hogwarts. Harry and Ron share a boat with Hermione and Neville. Overall, this chapter was actually pretty enjoyable. It introduced us to the greatest friendship of Ron and Harry. It introduces us to the Weasleys, Hermione and Neville. There seemed to be a lot. There was kind of, I really enjoyed this chapter. Overall, I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. I don't know why, but it just gave this one kind of gave me warm feelings when reading it, hearing Harry and Ron start their friendship just like at the snap of fingers, basically. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.